Peace and love, you beautiful wonders with a spiritual level of being. Nathan here from a spiritual level of being, and you have a spiritual level of being. And today we're going to be discussing Zoroastrian influence on Christianity and Judaism. Now, in a previous video, I discussed Cyrus the Great, the Jewish Messiah. Now, this Jewish Messiah was a Zoroastrian, a follower of Zoroaster, and he was a Persian king and king of Iran. Now, he conquered the Babylonian Empire, and he allowed the Jews to return from their exile and commanded them to rebuild their temple. Now, not all Jews were exiled from Babylonia. Some Jews stayed in their previous settlements and would choose to worship at the old temple ruins. It was only the Jewish hierarchy that were exiled. Now, the Magi, who were the wise men that visited Jesus, these were Zoroastrian priests. So without Zoroastrian influence, we would have no Christianity, Islam, or modern-day Judaism, which is a shame because Islam did persecute the Zoroastrians. Now, Cyrus the Great, according to the book of Ezra, was one who officially commanded the rebuilding of the temple. And we're going to be reading from the book of Ezra. Okay, Cyrus the Great commands the Jews to return. Well, it just says Cyrus commands the Jews to return. In the first year that Cyrus of Persia was emperor, the Lord made what he had said through the prophet Jeremiah come true. He prompted Cyrus to issue the following command and sent it out in writing to be read aloud everywhere in his empire. This is the command of Cyrus, emperor of Persia. The Lord, the God of heaven, has made me ruler over the whole world, and has given me responsibility of building a temple for him in Jerusalem in Judah. Now, the Jews believed that the Messiah would be ruler of the world, ruler of all nations. Now, the funny thing here is his God was not the Jewish God. It was Ahura Mazda, the god of Zoroastrianism. This is what the church fathers don't want you to know, and what a lot of Jewish rabbis don't want you to know and don't know because they haven't studied into history. Now, a lot of this was made to be propaganda. Now, because of Cyrus the Great's friendly interactions with the early Jewish people, many of which were Jewish scholars and Jewish rabbis, Jewish religious teachers would in turn study Zoroastrianism. Now, it is said that Ezra and Nehemiah, sorry if I butchered that name, would in turn form a new Zoroastrian-based Judaism, as new things will be brought into Judaism, such as the resurrection of the dead. It wasn't there before. Now, the idea of Satan was once God's lieutenant, and then this idea shifted towards an anti-God or an evil spirit. Now, this evil spirit is of Zoroastrian influence. Now, this darkness or Ahriman, sorry if I butchered this name again, this is concepted in Islam. So this attributed into what would be formed as the devil in Christianity. Okay, so let's continue. May God be with all of you who are his people. You are to go to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple of the Lord, the God of Israel, the God who is worshipped in Jerusalem. If any of his people in exile need help to return, their neighbours are to give them this help. They are to provide them with silver and gold, supplies and pack animals, as well as offerings to present in the temple of God in Jerusalem. So the neighbours, this would mean also the Jews that stayed as they were worshipping at the old temple ruins. So the hierarchy returning, pretty much demanding help, tribute from the people that stayed in order to help them rebuild. So there were also, with the ones that stayed, there was a mixing of within the Zoroastrians and Greeks and other possible Essene sects that would form their own little Gnostic Judaism sects. Now, this idea as well would be influenced by Ezra and Nehemiah, who in turn would also reconstruct Judaism with this new temple. So these ideas would in turn influence Judaism. Okay, so continuing again. Then the heads of the clans of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, the priest and Levite, and everyone else whose heart God had moved, got ready to go and rebuild the temple. so the Lord's temple, in Jerusalem, all their neighbours helped them by giving them many things: silver, utensils, gold, supplies, pack animals, other valuables, and offerings for the temple. Now, it wasn't just the ones who stayed, it was also like the neighbouring kingdoms as well. So this would be referring to all Jews, basically. Cyrus gave them back the bowls and cups that King Nebuchadnezzar, sorry if I butcher that name, had taken from the temple in Jerusalem, as Cyrus the Great had overthrown this king, and had put in the temple of his gods. He handed them over to Mithrath, chief of the royal treasury, who made an inventory of them for Sheshbazzar, the governor of Judah, as follows: gold bowls for offerings, 30. Silver bowls for offerings, 1,000. Other bowls, 29. Small gold bowls, 30. Small silver bowls, 410. Other utensils, 1,000. In all there were 5,400 gold and silver bowls and other articles which Sheshbazzar took with him when he and the other exiles went from Babylon to Jerusalem. So this is the returning from the exile. Now I'm just going to go backtrack. This is in Chronicles. So 2 Chronicles 36:22. In the first year that Cyrus of Persia was emperor, the Lord made what he had said through the prophet Jeremiah come true. He prompted Cyrus to issue the following command and send it out in writing to be read aloud everywhere in his temple. This is the command of Cyrus, emperor of Persia. The Lord, the God of heaven, has made me ruler over the whole world and has given me the responsibility of building a temple for him in Jerusalem in Judah. Now all of you who are God's people, go there, and may the Lord your God be with you. So it's mentioning here, it's a combination here. It's combining in this idea of one God. So this is a Zoroastrian influence. Now, Cyrus was so important to the Jews, he's mentioned in a couple references here in the Bible. So now let's go to Isaiah 45.1. Okay, so Isaiah 45.1, the Lord appoints Cyrus. The Lord has chosen Cyrus to be king. He has appointed him to conquer nations. He sends him to strip kings of their power. The Lord will open the gates of the cities for him. Cyrus, the Lord says, I myself will prepare your way, leveling mountains and hills. I will break down bronze gates and smash their iron bars. I will give you treasures from dark secret places. Then you will know that I am the Lord, and that the God of Israel has called you by name. I appoint you to help my servant Israel, the people that I have chosen. I have given you great honor, although you do not know me. I am the Lord, there is no other God. I will give you the strength you need. So mentioning here, they've taken away his God, and they're mentioning about theirs. But according to old history, it was a message received by him, by his God. So here, this is editing, which is quite funny. Now, let's go to Isaiah 48.12. Actually, just before I continue, I'm just going to quickly read this bit out. I am the Lord, there is no other God. I will give you the strength you need. Although you do not know me, I do this so that everyone from one end of the world to the other may know that I am the Lord, and that there is no other God. I create both light and darkness. Now, this idea also of the duality of light and darkness, this is Zoroastrian influence. This is also of Gnostic influence. This is because the Gnostics were the first omnists. These were combining of traditions to make a universal religion, a universal idea of spirituality. Okay, so now let's go to Isaiah 9.6. Now, some people believe this is a reference to Jesus, but it's actually a reference to Cyrus the Great. A child is born to us, a son is given to us. and he will be our ruler. He will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. His royal power will continue to grow. His kingdom will always be at peace. He will rule as King David's successor, bashing his power on right and justice. For now until the end of time, the Lord Almighty is determined to do all this. Now, this is a reference here to Cyrus the Great. This is why the book of Ezra has been removed in many Bibles, as they don't want you to know this. So now let's continue. Now, the idea of a personal guardian angel, this idea was also influenced by Zoroastrian's idea of the Fravashi, who would send a soul into the material world in order to fight the battle of light and darkness, good and evil. This idea was also attributed into Christianity and Judaism. Now, this guardian angel of sorts was a personal guardian to the dead and unborn souls. So this idea as well was being connected to the ones that were living. So the idea of the resurrection, that the Jews believed that on the great day of judgment, the body would resurrect and the soul would reunite. This idea was adopted from the Zoroastrian belief, as it wasn't there before the Babylonian exile. Now, because of Cyrus the Great's friendly interactions with the Jewish people and their faith, and the friendly interactions they had with the Zoroastrians in whole, they, in turn, the Jewish scholars and the religious elites would study Zoroastrianism and would also partake in some of their beliefs and would adopt them as their own. Now, this in turn would be seen with why the Pharisees and Sadducees did not like each other, as the term Pharisee was a mockery term for Parsi, meaning Persian Zoroastrian. So the Sadducees viewed the Pharisees as Zoroastrians. And this is one reason why the Pharisees disliked the Sadducees, as the Sadducees rejected the resurrection of the dead. Now, the Zoroastrians believed that the soul was eternal. Now, there were Gnostic Jewish sects that in turn would adopt Zoroastrian beliefs, also ancient Egyptian Hermetic knowledge and knowledge from the Greeks and their philosophy, and even Mesopotamians, and in turn would form their own unique mystery schools. Now, they in turn would also believe that the soul is eternal, but the idea of the soul eternal being in, say, modern Judaism is from the belief of the Zoroastrians, who also in turn believe that the Great Renewal or Judgment, which is similar to the Jewish idea of the Great Judgment, where the soul would reunite with the body, the resurrection. This in turn was adopted from Zoroastrianism. Now, these Gnostic Jewish sects that would mix in with these other cultures, in turn would take these stories but would view them as symbolic, so empowering the reader to understand them, to see these mysteries within oneself. So the resurrection being a reborn version of you, to come to know yourself, to lead to the self-discovery, discovering the divine within you. So a new beginning, so a death of the old you and a reborn version of you, beginning new life as a more authentic version of you, a greater version of you. Now, it's interesting when we do study these old beliefs and these old influences of other cultures and beliefs. So peace and love, everyone. I love you all. Connect to one mind and soul. Namaste.